The construction site buzzed with the symphony of machinery, grinders whirring, hammers clanging, and the low rumble of cement mixers. Dust hung in the air like a gritty fog, clinging to the sweat-streaked faces of the workers. At the heart of it all stood the half-finished skeleton of what would soon be the Pinnacle Tower, a sleek, modern skyscraper destined to dominate the skyline of Haven City. The project was the brainchild of Victor Grayson, a renowned architect whose name was synonymous with prestige and perfection. At 45, Victor had built a career on precision, his sharp suits as immaculate as his blueprints, his demeanor as cold as the steel girders he designed with. On this sweltering July afternoon, Victor strode onto the site, his polished loafers crunching against the gravel. His piercing blue eyes scanned the chaos with disdain, his clipboard clutched like a scepter. The workers parted instinctively as he approached, their chatter fading into murmurs. Victor didn't just command respect, he demanded it. And today, he was in a particularly foul mood. The project was 3 days behind schedule, a delay he blamed squarely on the incompetence of the crew. Martinez! Victor barked, his voice cutting through the din. The site foreman, a burly man with a weathered face, hurried over, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Yes, Mr. Grayson?" Martinez asked, his tone deferential but strained. Victor didn't bother with pleasantries. "Why is the West Wing still a mess? I told you yesterday to have those beams aligned by noon. It's 2 o'clock, and it looks like a damn scrapyard." Martinez shifted uncomfortably. "We hit a snag, sir. The specs you gave us, there's an issue with the load-bearing supports. We've been trying to—" "Excuses," Victor snapped, waving a hand dismissively. "I don't pay you to try. I pay you to do. Fix it. Now." As Martinez scurried off, Victor's gaze landed on a figure hunched over a pile of rebar near the edge of the site. The young man couldn't have been older than 22, his frame wiry but strong, his dark hair matted with sweat beneath a battered hard hat. He wore a faded flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and his hands moved with a quiet focus as he sorted the metal rods. Victor's lip curled. He didn't recognize the kid, probably some new hire, another grunt who'd slow things down. "You," Victor called, striding over. "What's your name?" The young man straightened, wiping his hands on his pants. His hazel eyes met Victor's with a calm intensity that caught the architect off guard for a fleeting moment. "Eli Carter," he said simply. "Eli Carter," Victor repeated, his tone dripping with mockery. "And what exactly are you doing over here, Eli? Playing with sticks while the rest of us try to build something?" Eli's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "Sorting the rebar. Some of it's bent, won't hold up if we use it as is." Victor snorted. "Oh, a quality control expert, are we? Tell me, kid, how many skyscrapers have you built? Because I've lost count of mine." He stepped closer, looming over Eli. "You don't get paid to think. You get paid to lift, haul, and shut up. Leave the engineering to people who actually know what they're doing." A few nearby workers exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of sympathy and unease. Eli didn't flinch. "If you used effective rebar, the whole structure's at risk," he said quietly. "I'm just pointing it out." Victor's face reddened. "You're pointing it out," he echoed, his voice rising. "Listen here, you little punk, I've got degrees from MIT and 20 years of experience. You've got what? A high school diploma and a chip on your shoulder? Get back to work before I have you tossed off this site." Eli held Victor's gaze for a moment longer, then nodded once and turned back to the rebar. The architect stormed off, muttering about insolence, leaving a ripple of tension in his wake. The other workers avoided Eli's eyes, but he didn't seem fazed. He simply resumed his task, his hands steady, his mind already elsewhere. Eli Carter wasn't just another laborer. He'd grown up in a small town 50 miles outside Haven City, the son of a carpenter and a schoolteacher. His father, Tom, had taught him the craft from the time he could hold a hammer, how to measure twice, cut once, how to feel the grain of wood like it was a living thing. But Eli's real gift lay beyond carpentry. He had an uncanny knack for understanding structures, a near photographic memory for blueprints, and a mind that could unravel complex problems like they were simple puzzles. By 16, he'd redesigned his family's crumbling barn into a sturdy, efficient workshop using salvaged materials and a few borrowed books on engineering. College hadn't been an option, money was tight, and when his father fell ill, Eli took whatever jobs he could find to keep the bills paid. Construction became his world, and though he started at the bottom, he soaked up every detail, the way concrete cured, the tension in steel cables, the subtle dance of load distribution. He didn't have a degree, but he had something better, instinct honed by necessity and a brilliance no classroom could teach. The Pinnacle Tower job was his first big city gig, a chance to prove himself. He'd taken it knowing he'd be invisible, just another pair of hands. But invisibility didn't mean ignorance. When he'd glanced at Victor's blueprints during a lunch break, he'd spotted the flaw immediately, a miscalculation in the West Wing support system that could buckle under stress. He hadn't said anything then. Who'd listen to a nobody like him? But the bent rebar had forced his hand, and now he'd painted a target on his back. Over the next week, Victor made a point of singling Eli out. Every mistake, every delay, no matter how small, became an opportunity to berate him. "Carter, you call that a weld? My grandmother could do better, and she's been dead for a decade, or move faster, Carter, or I'll replace you with a forklift, it'd have more brains." The crew watched in silence, some wincing, others smirking. Eli took it without complaint, his expression unreadable, his focus unwavering. But the cracks in the project were growing. The West Wing's foundation began to show hairline fractures, just as Eli had feared. Martinez noticed it first, calling Victor over one humid morning. The architect stared at the fissures, his face a mask of controlled fury. "It's the ground settling," he said curtly. "Nothing unusual. Patch it and move on." Martinez hesitated. "Sir, it's spreading faster than it should. Maybe we ought to double-check the load specs. Are you an engineer now too?" Victor snapped. "Do your job, Martinez, or I'll find someone who can." That night, Eli stayed late, long after the others had clocked out. Under the glare of a portable floodlight, he studied the blueprints he'd borrowed from the site office, a risky move, but he couldn't shake the nagging certainty that something was wrong. His fingers traced the lines, his lips moving silently as he calculated. There it was, the load-bearing columns were spaced too far apart, and the rebar specs didn't account for the added weight of the upper floors. It wasn't just a flaw, it was a disaster waiting to happen. He scribbled notes on a scrap of paper, sketching an alternative design with tighter column spacing and reinforced supports. It was rough, but it would work. He folded the paper and tucked it into his pocket, unsure what to do next. Confronting Victor again would be suicide. But staying silent felt worse. The breaking point came 2 days later. A section of the West Wing scaffolding groaned under a fresh load of concrete, the metal buckling with a sickening screech. Workers shouted, scrambling back as the structure tilted dangerously. Eli, hauling a stack of planks nearby, dropped them and sprinted toward the chaos. He spotted a loose brace pin, a rookie mistake, and lunged for it, jamming it back into place just as the scaffold stabilized. The crew exhaled collectively, but Victor, arriving moments later, saw only failure. Who was on that section? He roared. His eyes landed on Eli, still kneeling by the brace. Carter, of course. Should have known. You're a walking liability, kid. It wasn't me, Eli said evenly, standing. The pin was loose. I fixed it. Fixed it? Victor laughed, a harsh, grating sound. You think you're some kind of hero now? This is your mess, own it. Eli's patience snapped. He pulled the folded paper from his pocket and thrust it at Victor. The mess is yours. Look at this. Your design's off. The columns can't handle the load, and the rebar's too weak. That's why the foundation's cracking and the scaffold's failing. Victor snatched the paper, glancing at it with a sneer. What's this? Your little doodles. You think you can waltz in here and play architect? He crumpled the sketch and tossed it into the dirt. You're done, Carter. Pack your stuff and get out. The crew went still, the air thick with disbelief. Martinez stepped forward. Mr. Grayson, maybe we should. Shut it, Martinez, Victor cut in. He's gone. End of story. Eli didn't argue. He grabbed his toolbox, his movements deliberate, and walked off the site without a backward glance. But as he disappeared into the dusk, the crumpled paper lay in the mud, its faint pencil lines glinting under the floodlights. The next morning, disaster struck. A section of the west wing collapsed during a routine pour, sending concrete and steel crashing to the ground. No one was hurt, but the damage was catastrophic, weeks of work reduced to rubble. The site shut down, and whispers of lawsuits and investigations spread like wildfire. Victor stood amid the wreckage, his face ashen, his confidence shattered. Martinez, against his better judgment, had retrieved Eli's sketch from the mud. He smoothed it out and handed it to the structural engineer brought in to assess the failure. The engineer, a wiry woman named Dr. Lena Patel, studied it with growing astonishment. Who drew this? She demanded. Some kid who got fired, Martinez muttered. Eli Carter. Dr. Patel shook her head. This isn't just some kid's doodle. It's a fix, a damn good one. He's right about the columns and the rebar. If we'd built it this way, none of this would have happened. Victor overheard, his stomach twisting. That's impossible, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Impossible? Dr. Patel shot back. Your design was a ticking time bomb. This kid saw it coming when you didn't. The news reached the project's investors, who demanded answers, and Eli. Martinez tracked him down at a diner on the edge of town, nursing a coffee and sketching on a napkin. They want you back, Martinez said. Grayson's on thin ice, and Patel says you're the real deal. Eli hesitated, then nodded. I'll do it. But not for him. When Eli returned, the site was a different place. Dr. Patel put him in charge of the West Wing's redesign, his sketch transformed into official plans. Victor, sidelined but still present, watched in stony silence as the crew rallied around Eli. The young man's quiet competence shone through, every adjustment precise, every decision sound. The West Wing rose stronger than before, its foundation unshakable. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Victor approached Eli. The architect's arrogance was gone, replaced by something raw and uncertain. I underestimated you, he said, his voice low. I was wrong. Eli looked at him, his hazel eyes steady. You didn't just underestimate me. You didn't see me at all. Victor nodded, a flicker of respect breaking through his pride. I see you now. Eli turned back to his work, the pinnacle tower climbing higher behind him. It wasn't about revenge or proving a point. It was about building something that lasted, something that stood tall against the odds. And in the end, that's exactly what he did. The Pinnacle Tower opened a year later, its sleek silhouette a testament to resilience and brilliance. Victor's name still graced the plaque, but those in the know whispered another, Eli Carter, the construction genius who turned a flawed dream into a towering reality.